everyone. Guess who's back? It's Kamish back here with another draft preview. And this time we got Angry Unicorns in the North American division, Black Dog 420, Tier 3 qualifier from last year, comes to Tier 2. And like most Tier 3 qualifiers, is probably going to find out that Tier 2 is a little bit tougher. But Black Dog has a pretty interesting scenario here with his team. And if he does the right things, it could be an interesting year. So let me just share my screen and we'll just get right into it and talk about why it might be an interesting year for Angry Unicorns and Black Dog 420. All right, here we go. So looking at the keepers, unreal keepers, right? Like, so let's face it, the consensus number one fantasy player of the year this year is Bijan Robinson with the Atlanta Falcons. That's even going to become more evident with Kevin Stefanski as coach. For people who follow the Browns, you may or may not recall, but Stefanski was coach in Nick Chubb's years, right? Nick Chubb was a machine for the Browns. And honestly, it's unfair that his career got cut short by a dirty hit, no, lo and behold, by a Pittsburgh Steeler. Pittsburgh Steelers are well known for their dirty hits and for getting away with them, to be perfectly honest with you. But that's the benefit of a legacy team. But yeah, it ruined Nick Chubb's career. Hopefully, the same doesn't happen to Bijan Robinson, but Stefanski likes to run the ball. And when you got quarterbacks like Tua or Penix, no matter who it is, you better be running a lot because both those quarterbacks are mediocre at best. So we start with Bijan. Obviously, he's going to put up huge numbers for you every week. Bucky Irvin, um, obviously not Bijan quality, but still a useful running back. And the offseason reports I read recently it sounds like he is starting to participate a little bit in the offseason program, which is great news for you because if he's participating now, then essentially what that will mean for you is, hopefully he'll be ready to go by training camp and into the season. You made the trade here in the offseason for JSN, Jackson Smith and Jibba. You traded three pieces away, I believe, for him. Three pieces that you weren't really going to keep. So I like what you've done here. Because when you look at this triple-headed monster at wide receiver coupled with Bijan Robinson, yikes. It could be very safe to say that you might have the best keepers in the league. So looking at it, Jackson Smith and Jibba, we all know he took off last year, got the big contract, got a Super Bowl ring. You got Jamar Chase, who is usually consensus number one wide receiver in fantasy. So you got the consensus number one running back, consensus number one wide receiver in your keeper vault. That's scary, right? I mean, both those guys could be putting up 40, 50 each a game. And that's a win for you, right? Each week. Doesn't matter who the rest of the lineup is. And then Puka Nakua, what? I mean, unreal. And let's face it, it's Nakua, Devontae Adams is getting old, and then a bunch of mediocre wide receivers in LA. So Nakua is the feature there in Hollywood. And, you got a Hollywood-like lineup of keepers here, to say the least. Your IDP keepers, Caden Ellis, he's now a New Orleans Saint. If Demario Davis is gone now, so you got to think Ellis now is gonna, he should get a lot of volume in terms of tackling on that team. Other potential keepers, even though I probably wouldn't go with these guys, Jared Goff, Dalton Kincaid could be in there. Very outside chance that maybe Jalen Coker, but maybe even CJ Stroud. But again, you'd have to drop Bucky for any one of those keepers, and then that puts you weak at the running back hole. So I think you're obviously going with the right keepers. IDP, I didn't really see anyone else you could have swapped in there. Maybe Barrett Carter, the young linebacker, but I'm not really seeing anyone else that you could slot in there. So great job trading the three kind of lower tiered wide receivers to get JSN and really give yourself even if it's not this year, definitely hope for next year. Your recap for last year, well, like I mentioned already, you're a Tier 3 qualifier, so you didn't have a record here in Tier 2 last year. But one thing I will say that you demonstrated in Tier 3 is that you were an active owner, The active owners actually moved up from tier three, and that was clear. Tier three has been a bit of a dead zone this year without yourself. Obviously National Treasures who won it last year, and original K Mill who obviously moved up as well. Joe Paku also moved up, but he obviously retired and is no longer in the league. I will say this, now that you're in this tier, there's more active teams, which means more competitive teams, right? So it's going to be a lot harder for you to move up. But again, the team you inherited here really sets you up for a pretty nice advantage if used properly. This is where things get interesting, right? So the prior team moved up because they clearly went all in. That's why you had so many good keepers, so many good players, and why you could trade those three wide receivers away. But you can see you have no pick in the first three rounds and no pick in the fifth round. So literally, you have one pick and that first pick is in at pick 51. And then the next pick after that's at pick 83. So you got two picks in 83 picks. Yeah, that sucks. But you got two nines, two tens to make up for it, which I think is pretty decent. You just inherited an extra round 29 because we discovered that Say My Name had an extra pick that should have went to you. If you look closely, though, there is somewhere else that you should be having a pick because there's four no picks. You got three double ups. There should be four double ups somewhere. I can't find the other owner that has the extra pick. So if other teams are watching this, can you look at your draft picks and see if you have an extra pick? It'd be around 29 that would go to Black Dog here. But if you have an extra pick, that pick should go to Black Dog Angry Unicorns here. And Angry Unicorns, if you want to put the time in to see if you can find where the extra pick is, by all means, because it's a pick that you're losing out on. I don't know what happened. Remember, in the tiered system, folks, every trade has to be pick for pick in this tiered system. And probably what happened is during the deadline, there was trades flying everywhere in every tier, and I probably just missed a couple where I didn't notice that it was a true pick for pick scenario. So I'll take accountability for it, or maybe just sleeper messed up on the rollover, which I've had happen to me before too. So like I say, if you can find that extra pick, Black Dog, by all means, go for it. But the way I see it is you still have eight picks here in the first 10 rounds, which isn't too bad. I mean, I know you don't have the early picks, but you also have probably the best keepers in the entire league, which kind of makes up for not having those picks this year. And like I say, if you don't do well this year, those keepers for next year with a full slate of picks shouldn't take you long to get to tier one, to be perfectly honest with you. Your likely first pick, I'm going best available or quarterback, right? So the thing that could hurt you this year is the fact that you don't have a quarterback, right? So the fact that you don't pick till pick 51, that's going to hurt you in terms of what type of quarterback you can get. I went through the sleeper ADP. Again, this isn't the way I think it'll go, but I went through sleeper ADP. And at pick 51, according to sleeper, the players that would be available to you would be Jalen Coker, Josh Downs, Okonkwo, not bad players really to add to those existing keeper talent. And then at quarterback, there's Jordan Love and Jared Goff. They say would be available. So Jared Goff could be a potential keeper on your team, could very well be back on the team. But I do think Detroit's primed for a down year this year. I think Detroit and Philly are the two teams that I've identified as two teams that are going to be downward this year. Just a gut feeling. I think for you, again, if you don't draft the quarterback, like one thing you could look at here in determining whether or not you got to go quarterback first is look at the other 15 teams. If they already have a quarterback on the roster, you could maybe forgive picking another one later on, but you just don't want to be in a scenario where all of a sudden the only quarterbacks available are like Malik Willis and Geno Smith. Because if that happens, then, those guys could get you negative points. At least Jordan Love and yeah, Jared Goff will probably get you 15 to 20, right? But Willis, Geno Smith, yeah, they might get 15 to 20, maybe even 30 one week, but they very well could also get you minus 10. Looking at your outlook, potential storylines for next year. Again, I put draft picks, still a pick discrepancy somewhere, right? So from what I can see, you're still missing one pick. There is some team out there that has an extra pick. We got to figure it out. That's why we do these draft previews, right? We also figure out the issues and where things are. And so, anyways, if other teams are watching all the previews, I would appreciate it if you looked at your team and just count your picks and see if you have an extra pick. Again, I put a lot of time into the videos. A lot of the times I don't have time to go into every single team and count your picks. It's just, I do have a life too, even though it might seem like I don't. You got a balanced roster, right? So you got the two running backs, three amazing wide receivers, no quarterback, of course, which we talked about could be a concern. If you go setup year, though, so when I say setup year, that means trading picks away and going all in, you could be a very dangerous team this year, right? I mean, when you look at that keeper quality and you see it for the difference for success here, your keeper talent is A plus, right? There's not many teams even close to your keeper quality. I think the only thing that could be difference for failure for you is injuries to that keeper quality. Puka, he's been in and out of rehab. I saw him get hit so hard last year. He was bleeding out of his eye sockets. That can't be good for you, right? But he was still playing. So guys obviously got a screw loose upstairs. But again, the other thing that could hurt you for failure or difference for failure too could be staying stagnant, right? So either you don't analyze the quarterback situation properly, or maybe you end up with Malik Willis. You want to go all in. You're gonna have to trade for a quarterback, right? Or not getting the right people on the waiver wire because maybe some of your flex or IDPs aren't as strong as the other teams in the league because they did have all their picks. Those are the types of things that you're gonna need to be on top of. Otherwise, that could lead to failure for you this year. So, again, you're going to notice that tier two is a little bit tougher. And then when you get to tier one, it's even that much tougher, even though it's fairly quiet in the offseason in tier one. But these guys have been around forever. They know when things pick up. And every owner, I can say, for tier two and tier one is setting their lineup during the regular season and on it during the regular season. Tier three, we'll see, because of course I got some new owners there, and there's one owner in the entire format that joined here in tier three and still doesn't have a logo, and he's the only owner in tier three that doesn't have a logo. So again, if you prove that you're not active, you're not setting that lineup during the week, I'm okay giving you the boot and taking care of it. But for you, Angry Unicorns, I think you're a good owner. And you have a chance here to do the hop, skip, jump. So by that, I mean from tier three to tier two to tier one. And whoever inherits this team in tier two every year, if you do move up, maybe it's this year, maybe it's next year, is getting a great team here with these keepers, right? Like, if anything, it's almost unfair to the other teams in tier two. But hey, you got to build it up. And sometimes you just get lucky moving up into a tier because of what someone else did for you in the years prior. Okay, so anyways, I just want to say you're a great addition. I'm looking forward to seeing what you bring in your second year to the LOC fam. And if you can get to tier one right away, I would be very impressed. And I think you have an opportunity to do so if you do the right things. Have a good year.